Hey everyone, so I'm kind of going through a tough time right now, and it's not because winter's coming up and the weather's getting colder and I can't really go outside and do the normal active stuff that I do. Like, this is a general kind of upsetting thing for me. So I was working on a problem, just crushing it on my calculator, TI-84 plus, Texas Instruments, what's up? And I was trying to do a problem like this because I was generally curious if you could take the square root of a negative number, because like I've been working with positive numbers, taking square roots of that forever, and that gives me sometimes a lovely irrational number like this. Sometimes it's a nice wholesome number that I'm really familiar with, like 2. Who doesn't like 2? So I came across this issue when I made a small typo and I was taking the square root of -6, and my mind was blown away. My calculator could wrap, non-real ants. All right, well, it's a good investment right here. I didn't know this could wrap. Non-real ants when I try to do the square root of a negative number. And it says it's an error too. Like my curiosity just isn't right. So I'm going to get to the bottom of this. I was frantic, tired, and had a computer on hand. I really wanted to find an answer to this, so I hit up Google. I said, what is the square root? Oh, well, these are all numbers I know. Well, let's keep going. Let's see if anything else comes up on this related search. What is the square root of a negative number? And it looked like it was a common issue where some people were asking, what's it called? What is it equal to? Wow. So there was an option, this I term. And what's cool about this is that this was discovered years and years ago to try and simplify a radical that contained a negative factor. So although we were working with square roots of negative numbers like 6 and eventually -4, this was really something that was developed way back when to try and have some type of answer. And it's all thanks to this guy, Girolamo Cardano no. This Italian polymath, might have to double check on how I said that, whose interests and proficiencies range from being a mathematician, physician, biologist, physicist, chemist, astrologer, astronomer, philosopher, writer, and gambler. And he kind of saved the day. Look at him in all of his glory. Wow, what a swell guy. So this guy gave us the answer, and it was the one I was looking for eventually what we do when we deal with the square root of negative numbers, seen here. So he came up with this idea that we needed 2 solutions for problems like this, where if we were taking the square root of some number, we did have 2 answers, and we eventually wanted to take this further, saying that there was an imaginary answer or an imaginary unit that denoted the square root of -1 by using the letter I, so that I times I equals -1. This guy was a genius. He really knew what he was doing. So with the examples that we see here, this I term is what we refer to as the imaginary unit. And you might have seen this somewhere on your calculator, in particular towards the bottom for that dot. And now you have some understanding as to what that is. So this was a way for us to have answers if we were trying to find the square root of a negative number, where if I was squared, it was equal to -1, and I on its own was just equal to the square root of -1. Wow. So we can help solve problems like this and have some type of answer, even though the calculator forbids it and other sources might say there's no answer, where we factor out -1, where if we have -5, this is really a product of -1 and 5. We can separate the radicals because we've taken Algebra 1 and we know that this is fair game. So the square root of -1 multiplying with square root of 5, where square root of -1, we know that is I. So we can say that this is I square root of 5. And notice that I is outside of the radical. We can also work backwards and say that if we were squaring the square root of -5, imagine that I is on the outside. We can treat this like I squared multiplying with the square root of 5 being squared. which is pretty much negative 1 times 5, actor formerly known as negative 5. So we can do this with numbers that are on their own. Square root of negative 24, we could rewrite to negative 1 times 24. This equals I root 24, but root 24, we can break this down further because there is a factor that's a perfect square, and you should always try to break these down further when possible. So we'll keep I on the outside. We'll rewrite square root of 24 to 4 times 6, because 4 is a factor. Rewriting this again. Square root of 4, we know that number, so when simplified completely, we could say this is 2y root 6. And since we can rearrange multiplication, we could also say I to root 6. Both are fair game. I'll give you a moment to try square root of negative 12. You should end up with negative 1 times 12, which we can rewrite to I root 12, but you're smart. You took Algebra 1. You know you can take this further. To I, 4 times 3 in the radical. You know you can rewrite this to 2I root 3. Final answer. So lo and behold, we do have some number, even though your calculator says different, even though society may say something different, and it's all thanks to this guy here. Big ups.